Hello everyone, welcome to Read 516. This is week 10 and we'll start off as always going over our upcoming assignments. Okay, you have some readings this week. You have Lipson and Wixon, Chapter 9, Evaluating Comprehension. You have the core book, pages 150 through 180. You have two articles to read, Assessing Comprehension, a Classroom-Based Process. Another article, They Can Read the Words But They Can't Understand, Refining Comprehension Assessment. And then you have an optional article, which is Skilled Comprehension and Its Development Through Instruction. This last article is kind of a dry article, but it does provide some background on some of the research that has been done on reading comprehension. Okay, moving on. Some of the assignments you have this week is we have no participation activity. You do have a WAPR for session number 2, which will be analyzing the results from your QRI. Okay, so looking forward to session 3, you have a few comprehension assessments that you will be administering to your student. You have the core reading maze comprehension, and that should take roughly about 3 minutes or so, and then you have 2 additional comprehension assessments of your choice. And so looking over here, here are some of your options. Okay, so going into more detail of that session, you have your core and then you have 2 other ones of your choice. Okay, so this is the reading maze, measures comprehension of text read silently. This is for grades 2 through 10th, has 3 minutes to complete. So this is a short assessment. So this is something to note as you are preparing for your session. Okay, so another possibility would be administering another QRI. So let's say you did not have enough time in session number 2, you can move one over to session number 3. You can try having them do it silently if you haven't tried that already, or you can try to do one on a less familiar topic, or try doing the different varieties with lookbacks or without, whatever you haven't or have been doing. Here are some more assessment options. Okay, we have the Teachers College Reading Assessments, Reading A to Z Benchmark. Okay, some other ones. I'm just going to keep listing them for you. Okay, you can create your own, the closed passage. And you have kind of no limit on this one. Possibilities are endless. Let's say there's an assessment that maybe your school site uses that you haven't been able to use with your students. That can be a possibility. Or if you teach primary, you might want to ask some of the upper grade teachers if they have any assessments that you can use. Okay, so just giving you an overall guided reading benchmarks. I'm not really sure how many of you use those, but I like to refer to this. So, because it gives you some of the letter markings and the numbers and where they should be. So as we know, benchmarks. Okay, so even more assessment options. So you can utilize the comprehension assessments in the Fine and McMahon reading teacher article, have the child read a text and do a retell using procedures on page 394 to score. You can do an informal, less structured assessment where child reads and then at designated stopping points explain their thinking at that point, so using those think aloud strategies. And students could write or retell a summary, even create a text map. And this can be a good one too because you can have them write a summary and you can use that writing piece later when we start focusing on vocabulary and spelling. You can have that piece as another source of evidence. And then create your own questions for the text. So if you are doing this, make sure you do create a variety of question types, and there's some more information on page 341 of the Lipson and Wixon. and there will be some more on titanium as well. Okay, so looking forward to session 4, which is kind of scary because that means you're almost done with your student. This is where we focus on orthography, spelling, writing, and word recognition. So again, if you are using a writing piece that maybe your student did for a comprehension, retell, or summary, this would be something good to keep. Or you can have your student bring in something that he or she has done from school. But I would be careful with those because you want to make sure those are unassisted writing. All right, so our session tonight will be going over comprehension, specifically referring to the course readings on comprehension. Okay, our objectives is to determine appropriate measures to assess comprehension, report and analyze results from comprehension assessments, and discuss next steps for comprehension instruction. Okay, the first one I'm going to go over is the optional article, which is comprehension research. In the 1970s and 80s, comprehension was thought to be dependent on a reader's prior knowledge. If the reader has extensive knowledge associated with text ideas, then comprehension will be high. However, comprehension can still be limited even with extensive prior knowledge. So here in the 1970s and 80s, they really thought it was dependent on their prior knowledge. But we know that comprehension can still be limited even with extensive prior knowledge. So, therefore, comprehension is more than prior knowledge. And good readers employ conscious, active comprehension processes throughout reading. And this was done a study with adult readers. Okay, the reading processes. Okay, so this study, going back here really quick, there was a study done where research asked adults to read, and they wanted them to stop every so often to relate exactly what they were thinking out loud as they were reading. And what happened was, it was actually pretty astonishing, was that these researchers, Presley, was able to list a whole list of reading processes that they used, and it was 21 single-spaced pages. So you can see that a good reader employs a wide variety of strategies when they're reading. It's very interactive, and there isn't just one skill that they use. They're using a wide variety. So here is kind of a summary of what they saw. So they noticed that before reading, that most of the adults, they set a purpose, so why and what will I gain from this? During reading, actively looked for information tied to the goal. They relate important points in text to one another, so integrate ideas, construct hypotheses and conclusions, determine word meanings, underline, reread, make notes, or paraphrase to help remember information, examine cause and effect relationships, make inferences, monitor as they read. Here are some of the things they do after reading. They continue to reflect on the text. They reread, reskim important parts, and make note. So obviously this is a very simplified version of what a good reader would do, but it proves that there are many things that are going on in a reader's mind as they're reading a text. It's not just simply decoding the words. Okay, so the truth revealed. In 1978 and 79, Dolores Durkin observed 3rd through 6th grade classrooms, and here is what she saw. She found students frequently assessing comprehensions by asking comprehension questions, but no one was actually teaching comprehension. They were blaming the basals. So think about this. So they are assessing comprehension, however, no one is actually teaching it. Think of the ramifications for that. So Durkin's expose prompted much more of the early research on comprehensions in the 1970s and 80s. And the reason why they were blaming the basals was because they provided little guidance on how to teach comprehension strategies. Okay, so some of the early research after that was in the 1970s and 80s. The researchers identified and validated individual comprehension strategies that proved to be effective when reading. And they also found that with instruction on these, children can construct fuller representation of text. So things like prior knowledge, main idea, mental images or visualizing, making inferences. Oops, go back too fast. So those are just some of the skills that they felt that should be taught explicitly to help students make meaning from the text. The next phase of research, so instead of looking at the strategies themselves, they looked at the most effective ways to teach the strategies. So reciprocal teaching, so student teachers lead groups in posing questions, making predictions. Direct explanation approach, where the teacher explanation and mental modeling, followed by practice opportunities for the student. So effective comprehension instruction should be long-term. Direct explanation and modeling. Teachers coach while students practice. Students model the strategy used for one another. Usefulness of strategies and their application is also taught. Teachers model the strategies throughout the day, and that is really important because it shouldn't just be limited to the reading block, but also in other content areas such as math, social studies, and sciences. All right, so how are we doing now? Well, in 1990, Marilyn J. Adams pushes letter and word level processing. Okay, now text level processing and comprehension is less emphasized. In 1995, Presley et al. Observes 4th and 5th grade classrooms in upstate New York for an entire year and sees little teaching of comprehension. Simply reading does not lead to automatic strategy use. So you see how the pendulum is shifting back and forth. So even though we know that comprehension is important, the strategies are not necessarily being taught in the classroom. So when children are taught just one comprehension strategy, their reading improves, and we need to make sure that teachers are doing this. Teachers, I know that modeling is important and direct instruction is important, but I feel that oftentimes some teachers are not comfortable teaching the strategies and therefore do not teach them, and they expect the students to read the text and understand it. So we need to make sure, like I said, that students are being taught the strategies. Okay, going on to our next one, assessing comprehension with Fine and McMahon. And this one discusses how state tests limit information provided to the teacher and have a delay in reporting. So when you're looking at a state test, it doesn't necessarily provide you with information on a student's comprehension skills. Teachers need a variety of sources like ongoing classroom-based assessments to adjust and plan instruction for their students. Comprehension should be monitored regularly with a variety of texts, considering the learner's prior knowledge and purposes for reading. Props to Wisconsin. So this article highlights a district in Wisconsin because they were developed a comprehensive classroom-based assessment process where the teachers applied a 4-point rubric twice a year by collecting samples of classroom work from their students. And the reading specialist worked with teachers to conduct ongoing assessments that influenced instruction. Now, the 4-point rubric was based on the different facets of comprehension. These are summarized on page 407 of your article, but just looking over these highlight some of the most important comprehension strategies. So prior knowledge, literal comprehension, interpretive, critical thinking, And I will have to stop there because my 15 minutes is up.